Antithesis, the opposing view. These days, the spectrum of acceptable opposing views is becoming narrower and narrower. Soon, there will be only one acceptable view. We live in a world that's difficult to comprehend. It's difficult to know the truth. What kind of world do we live in? It's difficult to know what to believe. Do we believe the media? Do we believe our teachers? Do we believe our leaders? Does any of it matter? We have our bills to pay. We need to make money. Make money to work, eat, and sleep. But where does money come from? Is it just numbers in a computer? And what is education for? Is it just mind control? What about the planet we're on? Are we living in an infinite universe? How do we know anything we've been told is true? What if it isn't? Maybe we should stop and think. Why don't more people stop and think what it's all about? Some people are stopping to think. People with different theories and beliefs about our existence. They could be wrong. But what if they're right?
At the end of the day, it's about us finding our own spiritual truth and being able to accept or at least hold these ideas that seem far out, because I believe imagination is the most important thing. The mind is the key to all reality. And we get so caught up in the material sense of existence and being that we oftentimes misunderstand the true nature of magic, which is the deployment of mind. Being able to, first of all, conceive of something in order to manifest or create it, but also the fact that things can be occurring in different dimensions of existence and only manifesting here as in a symbolic form. To me, the key is just not to be caught up too much with this realm or this world. And all the spiritual teachings really are about that, whether it's, the Judeo-Christian tradition, what Christ was telling us, what Muhammad was talking about when he said this world is, basically is no better. The root of all evil is believing in this world. Really, this world is not the end-all, be-all, as we know. And we shouldn't be too tied up with the concrete, so-called concrete reality, but really more in the mind, the imagination, the power of creativity, because obviously this is also influencing our emotional states, and that's going to either give us a healthier prognosis as a human race, if we actually had a better trajectory and grasp of our fears and desires. RT reported recently that there's been a mass study of life after death, and that now scientists are looking seriously at the idea that yes, there is a life after death, that people who were technically dead, 40% or more, reported hearing things and recalling things from beyond, even though their body was technically dead, and were still able to recall things. So I hope that science gets more interested in approaching and addressing these issues. The idea that, yes, there is a science to this across the world. Most people do have some inclination that there is more to this world than just what we're seeing with our 2 eyes and 2 ears.
Anyway, let's move on. The Pentagon plane, 9/11, there was supposed to be the plane that hit the Pentagon, and there's been no video of the actual plane. And
did a plane hit the Pentagon? Absolutely not. Yeah. There's no way in hell.
It doesn't seem likely, does it?
It's not only not likely, it's impossible. It's impossible from the point of view that this is the most secure military facility in America. Let's say in probably in the whole world, right? This is our hub of military matters. To let that get hit by anything is beyond absurd. The idea that a plane created that small of a hole in the building, it doesn't make sense. The idea that the pilot did a 270-degree dive bomb with a 767 or 747 plane, right, is almost beyond impossible. Then landing it basically at a level of it was a landing level to actually hit the building.
Well, he's supposed to have knocked down a lamppost, didn't he?
Not just that, because it's so low, the Pentagon's so low, he basically had to come in at a landing level. This is a term, you're talking about a pilot who has no experience landing planes, let alone a plane of that size. Coming in at a landing level to actually not hit the grass, but still hit the building, and having no support from radar or any kind of assistance that a normal pilot would have when bringing a plane down, right? Mm. So to be able to hit that building at the exact wing of the Pentagon that's just gone through renovations, that even the witnesses at the time said they never saw any evidence of a wreckage, that people in D.C. who happened to show up there, never saw any indications of a plane wreck beyond the few photographs that were later put out. And then, on top of it, okay, you want to tell me that a plane hit the Pentagon, so show me the video. Yeah. And what did they show? They never showed a video. They showed an explosion. So guess what? It didn't happen.
Well, there's not even any videos of the plane coming in that area at all from all the CCTV cameras that must be around there.
No, they released the video only showing the explosion. They cut out the actual impact. So it's bullshit. I mean, that's it. I mean, if you have a video that shows the plane hitting the Pentagon, show it. But they won't, because it's not true.
I mean, it makes perfect sense to me what you're saying, but I just cannot understand why other people out there will just say, no, this is a conspiracy theory. Of course the plane hit the building. I don't understand why people aren't questioning it.
What you say in response is, guess what? It's also a theory that the plane hit the Pentagon because there's no video. No one wants to divulge the video. If you have the proof, show me. If the whole notion of the 9/11 attack via Al-Qaeda, right? That itself is a conspiracy theory. You see? Mm. It's a conspiracy theory. It's a theory that bin Laden and a group of terrorists conspired to attack America on 9/11. That's it. It's a conspiracy theory. We are offering a counter theory. We're saying that there was an inside job.
And, nobody seems to be prepared to actually answer some of the huge questions, like, for example, Building 7, why did it fall down? I mean, it's a simple question, but I saw Rumsfeld on a video the other day and saying, someone questioning about that, and he said, what's Building 7? You can see it on YouTube, just type in Rumsfeld Building 7, and he says, what's Building 7? I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, well, he wasn't briefed on that one, I guess. Yeah, Building 7, exactly. That was a smoking gun, that something else was afoot.
And some people are probably not even aware there was a Building 7.
At this point, most people are familiar with it. Some people are still repeating the claim that the fires caused from the first two towers somehow made the Building 7 collapse at near free fall speed. Mm. It's just nonsense. I mean, any thinking person can look at this and just say there's something wrong. But people don't want to be thinking. They want to follow. They want to follow what the teacher tells them. They want to follow the herd. There are very few. We were talking about before the show. There are very few rebels in any. If you take like a social study or experiment, there are very few rebels in any group. I don't know the exact percentage, but it's not the majority. The majority of people will go along. The majority of people will follow. And that's fine if you have a good leadership. It's fine when you have a righteous leader, when you have good people in charge. But when you have bad people in charge, man, you end up with what you have now, which is Nazi Germany redux. Nazi Germany under the guise of the American flag. You know, you see the nature of this New World Order that we're in, and it looks chaotic, but actually from a higher level, it's pretty much created. Almost every situation you're looking at is either created, good. It's a Hegelian dialectic, good guy, bad guy situation. The good guy this week is the bad guy next week, and vice versa. And it's about economics. It's about control. It's about controlling currencies and controlling resources and property, and that's really what it is. And all this is this politics and this hysteria and media. It's just a show. It's a dog and pony show for people who are gullible enough to watch it. Well, yeah, I mean, eventually, something's got to give, right? This system of constant manipulation and lies, deception. Sooner or later, people are either going to wake up or they're going to die, because it can't go on like this forever. This is Rome, and it's Rome. Rome is burning. So it's not going to go on like this forever.
It seems like more and more people are becoming interested in sort of cover-ups and conspiracies. I mean, have you found that as well? Why do you think people are sort of starting to disbelieve the official line these days?
I hope that's the case. Yeah, I would say that the majority of, I don't want to, what kind of number could I put on it? Certainly 3 out of 5 people are not interested at all, I would say.
Yeah, that's probably right.
And maybe one of them out of the 5 is starting to question things. Yeah, and certainly the mainstream media has taken such a hit, and even in the last year, it's as if we're winning that part of the argument. Certainly, and it's a big victory. That you're actually, when you're watching these like CNN, you're watching it and you're asking yourself, okay, what type of message are they trying to convey to us? What are they trying to tell us? What is their agenda?
Could you explain a bit what psychotronic warfare is?
Well, psychotronics is basically it's an umbrella term for the use of electronic brain interfering devices. So essentially mind control by the use of implants or ray guns or other sort of nefarious devices that beam things into your head. And there's a whole sort of range of different things. Implants, for example, which was probably sort of one of the first things that they were looking at. It was a Spanish doctor called Jose Delgado, and a lot of people have probably seen the footage, or you can find on YouTube the footage of him using a remote control to stop a charging bull in its tracks. And what he did was, it was relatively crude. Basically, these implants called stymosevers, well, relatively crude. I couldn't do it, but relatively crude in comparison to some of the latest technology. What these implants called stymosevers did was they literally just caused an electronic impulse, so it would directly affect muscle response. It would freeze up the actual, physically freeze up the bull and stop it from moving, basically, or freeze up certain muscles, which would in turn cause the bull to stop in its tracks. Later experiments with these stymosevers, according to Delgado and the other doctors involved, got so far as to be able to sort of perceive what people were seeing and what people were thinking. He said that they could interrupt somatic functions and thought process. It could make people he could turn people into robots, is essentially what he said. He did like push button robots, and he could manipulate their behavior willy-nilly.
That sounds pretty scary. I mean,
oh yeah.
Are there devices then that could actually control people's emotions and make them become violent, do you think?
Oh yeah, totally. There's an experiment in the late, I think it was the early 60s actually, that was conducted. Basically what was happening was in the Moscow embassy, the American embassy in Moscow, they discovered that the Russian Secret Service or intelligence agencies or some degree of the military or whatever was actually bombarding the office of the ambassador with microwaves in order to test the results, see what would happen. And the results was that he basically slowly became very, very ill and later died of illnesses that were attributed to radiation poisoning. And now the American government basically found out about this, and rather than tell the staff or help them out or anything like that, they decided that what we'll do is we'll just correlate our own results and see if we can find anything useful for this. And this became known as Project Pandora. And this was basically taken back to America and expanded by a doctor called Ross Addy. Now, one of the most terrifying things that he discovered was that brainwaves or brains, they have sort of very similar patterns for emotions. Like, have you ever seen one of those, like on Casualty or whatever, the sort of mind wave things, or a Frankenstein film? They're called an EEG meter, or an electroencephalograph, or I'm butchering that again. But basically, they make like a wave pattern. And when you're thinking certain things, that a certain particular type of wave pattern goes on. There's one for, say, rage, there's one for joy, there's one for love. And he discovered that if you took the pattern for rage and you sort of piggybacked it onto a particular type of microwave beam and then fired this directly into the brain, it sort of short-circuited the brain, whereby the brain recognized this signal and couldn't tell that it wasn't organic, so it immediately responded as if this signal was to be played out. And so you would immediately feel the white-hot rage, or the the bitter terror, or the incredible sadness, or whatever. And there's no way that your brain can determine that it's coming from an exterior source.
That is very scary because, if someone felt like they were targeted like that, a psychologist might say they're being delusional or suffering from hallucinations, but they could actually be being targeted.
Quite, and there has been cases of people who obviously claim that to happen, and in a lot of cases there seems to be a degree of evidence, certainly.
What about voice-to-skull technology? One thing I've always wondered about is a lot of murderers, serial killers, have said that the voices told them to do it. Could there be a case that they really are hearing voices that are being transmitted to them?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that was the Smirnoff patent was one particular thing that's owned. It's now owned by SciTech, which is a CIA-funded organisation that was connected with people like Ingo Swann and John B. Alexander, who were vaguely connected with that Men Who Stare at Goats project. But they're also into remote viewing and that sort of thing. Apparently, they own the patent to this thing called the Smirnoff device. And what it does is it works in a slightly different way, apparently. It uses sub-acoustics. So basically, it's just like a recording, but you can't actually perceive it. You can't hear it, but your sort of oral nerve or cortex or whatever it is picks it up. And so it sounds like a voice that's coming from inside your head. And we know this to work because basically the FBI were going to use this on David Koresh during the Waco siege. They actually got Charlton Heston to record a series of a monologue pretending to be God, and they were going to put this voice into his head and tell him to, tell him down his weapons and come out peacefully, or whatever, or surrender to whatever. But when they spoke to Igor Smirnoff, he couldn't guarantee that they wouldn't kill each other. The two that initially spring to mind with me are Mark Chapman, who didn't confess until we actually stayed in a trance, and then did not confess to the murder of John Lennon until prompted by a personal call from God. And then the other one would be Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper, who also apparently confessed after God told him to confess, and also admitted that he was on a mission from God to rid the world of prostitutes. And I'm sure there's also numerous other serial killers that I can't think of off the top of my head that felt that they were influenced by God. But certainly, particularly those two, is very interesting when you look at the cases, and combined with that confession, which is unusual, the sort of lack of professionalism and the gaps within those particular cases, whether, regardless of whether you think those two people guilty, not guilty, partially guilty, whatever, you certainly can't deny that those there was degrees of unusualness and strange unprofessionalism on parts of the police in both of those cases.
Mark Chapman had a number of characters inside his head talking to him, didn't he? He had I think they actually had a meeting to discuss whether he should kill John Lennon at one point.
He had these little people living inside his head, apparently, and he was trying to make himself into the big person so that he could defeat these people. He was, you know, deeply troubled person. That is entirely clear. What is the cause of this? It is the speculation, and there's a lot of suggestions that Mark Chapman was involved with various activities. He was working for World Vision, which is, you know, a charitable organisation, but he just so happened to be in areas like, I think it was Beirut at the time that the CIA was there, and the CIA was using groups like this to funnel information, funds, espionage agents, that sort of thing.